All right, welcome to the Better Way podcast. I'm Heath Esslinger, and we have a special guest today, and our mission is simple. We want to help restore the joy of sport for parents, coaches, and athletes. For those of us in a COVID-19 season right now, maybe we just want to get back to sport. But it was great to see some high school football this week. I'm going to a middle school soccer match tonight, a high school volleyball game. So it's exciting to be back, seeing kids out playing sports, having fun, doing what they're designed to do. It's also a lot of fun to be here today. Head coach at UNC-Charlotte. I've known this guy a long time. He's an up-and-comer in the sport world. I keep saying he's the next Dabo Swinney, and I think he's going to even exceed those expectations, and he's smiling right now. But he was the head coach at Austin Peay University. He took over the worst program in FCS football, and he turned it around because that's what he does. He leads people to the next level. Will Healy, thanks for joining us today on the Better Way podcast.
Do you want to start off with my 20-27 career record? Is that what Dabo's like 306. I'm 20-27. A lot of comparisons there, Heath. You
do one of two things in the coaching world. You sell what you've done, or you sell what you're gonna do. And now,
that's
what you're gonna do, baby.
That's exactly right.
I got your back here. And so, Will, tell us a little bit about your family. One of the things that people know about watching UNC-Charlotte football, and you operate as a head coach in the climate that we're in today, is that family matters. So tell us a little bit about your family.
Yeah, originally from Ottawa, Tennessee, right outside of Chattanooga, and have two older brothers, one that's 45, one that's 43. So they were 10 and 8 years older than I am. And, so was really kind of an only child for a little while after they went to college. Mom and dad, extremely supportive, never missed a game, even though, especially in college, I didn't play a whole lot, but they were always there to support. Mom is, such a godly woman and unbelievable example of Christ-like love, just constantly making sure that Christ was at the center of our family and what we do. My dad's an old football player, and actually got a chance to coach me for 2 years in high school. He was a linebacker at Boyd Buchanan. And he was, teaching all these things that he learned in 1972 that maybe didn't translate to, the year 2000. But I think the toughness and the love for the game and the passion and that he brought was it's infectious. And, his dad was an All-American at Georgia Tech, was tough as nails, and, raised a tailback, fullback, linebacker type mentality from my dad. I was the quarterback. I was a pretty boy. And, but that love for sports and the love for competition definitely comes from my dad. Two brothers are incredibly supportive, both very different, but it seems to be something, this whole football, career has seemed to be something that has been something that's brought our family closer together. And so we love being around each other. And, our kids love being around each other. Our wives are all three really good friends. So it's a very close-knit family that we're all there for one another.
So tell me about your own household. We see pictures on Twitter and Instagram of the Healy kids running around. Tell us a little bit about your own immediate family.
Yeah, my wife and I met in 7th grade. I'd already been at Boyd Buchanan. We had a back-to-school function. She was coming into the 7th grade, and I remember walking with my friend Blake Beckham, and we're walking down the hill to what we called the new gym. It was just because it was about 5 years older than the old gym. And I told him, I said, I'm going after fast pitch softball. There was this blonde-headed girl with a gray T-shirt on that said fast pitch softball, and it was her first day there. And it's crazy. It's my wife, and
wow.
Dated, if that's what you call it, in 7th and 8th grade. We held hands in the cafeteria, which was
at Boyd Buchanan School.
Extremely frowned upon at Boyd Buchanan School.
Rebel.
Dated through high school. Dated through a year at Air Force. Broke up for about a year and a half at the University of Richmond. And we were both lost, and ended up getting back together, got married in 2012, We have 2 little boys, a 5-year-old and a 1-year-old. And they are so much fun. And, when the 1-year-old is starting to develop a personality, he's starting to talk a little bit, he's running around, he wants to do everything his big brother does. And Eli, the 5-year-old, thinks he runs every place he walks into. I bring him out to practice, and all of our guys know him by name. He's always on a jumbotron somewhere. He's the center of attention, loves sports, loves being around our players, and he's a joy. But my wife is a rock star, and she's the one who keeps it together at home. She lives it just like I do, but loves it just like I do. And she is I couldn't do it with anybody else.
So let's talk about that for a minute, because you see in the sport climate today that there's almost this idea that you can't be both. You can't be great dad, faithful husband, elite level, excellent coach, whatever elite level is. Elite's relative. But you have seemed to create some balance when it comes to family and football. And so for the coaches out there that are just, they're running 90 miles an hour in one direction, liberate us a little bit on how you find that balance between family and football, and even your staff, because I've watched it unfold where you liberate your staff to be the same way.
Well, I think I've tried it. I've tried to be the one that, is the grinder and is sat in the office longer than everybody else. And what I've figured out is that you're not efficient. Just saying you worked longer than somebody doesn't mean you got more done than somebody else. I remember my first year at Chattanooga as a restricted earnings coach, basically a GA. I remember sleeping in the office. And it was almost just because it sounded cool. Like I was working
about
everybody else. But I was exhausted in the morning because I was sleeping on a blow-up mattress, and I didn't want to drive 30 minutes home. And I was like, you know what? This is ignorant. This is not good for me, and this is not making me a better coach. I think that a lot of the things that are important to me as a coach were things that I either saw or did not see from other people around me. And, whatever is a priority is going to be what you're really good at. And if your family is a priority, then you're not going to let that take a back seat just to go coach the game of football. You're going to incorporate it with coaching football. And so whether it's bringing your kids to practice, whether it's, having your wives travel with you on the road, whether it's family night on Sunday nights when all the kids are running around the office and the wives are here, or date night on Wednesday night, whatever you can do to incorporate wives and families, I think creates a whole different type of environment. It's fun for me to watch a young coach walk in and, a GA or a quality control guy that's not married and doesn't have a family, and he's a football guy, right? And he walks in our office, and the first Sunday night when he's got to go prepare to go play App State, he's got 8 kids running between his legs whenever he's on a game plan. And he's looking at me like, Coach, what are we doing? And by the time he gets to week 10 or 11, he's the one playing hide and go seek around the exact same office. And it's just like, I'm not apologizing for that. I think that it holds people accountable because little people have big ears, right? So what you say is important. Marcus West, our DC, and I used to always talk about, like, what would I want my kids to be around? They're going to go out to the practice field and they're going to hear somebody cuss, or they're going to be in a locker room and they're going to hear bad music or whatever it may be. And for me, it's like, listen, I'll coach them out of those things, but missing out on that time just because I'm concerned what they're going to learn is not what I'm interested in doing. And so they're not going to be sheltered, right? But I've also got to teach them the difference between right and wrong and hold our culture accountable for helping these young kids that are our own grow up into what we want them to be. So I heard way too many coaches say you got to choose. And for me, look, if they fire me as a football coach and they tell me I can't do it again, I'll be fine. It's what I want to do. It's what I love to do. There's no better profession on the face of the earth, but it's not my why, and it's not who I am as a person. It's part of what I do, but it's not, it's not the ultimate, ultimate rewards of winning and losing football games that makes me do it.
Yeah, your administration can fire you as a football coach, but you don't want to fire yourself as a father and a husband.
My wife can't fire me. Right? Yeah. That can't happen.
Yeah. And so I just read a book called Team of Teams by a guy named General Stanley McChrystal. It's actually a great book, but in there, it has a quote by Peter Drucker, and it says, efficiency is doing things right. Effectiveness is doing the right things. And so I just want to applaud you, and I do it so often publicly, for doing the right things. And the right things are, and even for the athletes we coach,
Yeah.
many of them, this is their definition of family that they're seeing from the coaches and things like that. And for the coaches out there, you heard Coach Healy say a couple of things, hanging out with the wives, date night, all these different things. And so a lot of coaches will ask me, well, how do you do it? And there's two things I say: put it on your calendar and build it into your practice plan. Because if you want to know what someone values, look at their calendar, look at their checkbook.
That's the other thing I would say to you, Heath, is if you're waiting to make enough money to be able to do it, you're never going to do it. Go broke doing it. I mean,
I love it. Say that again.
Serious. I remember one of my favorite stories, and it's not to toot my own horn because I don't do that, but we're at Austin Peay. We're 0-11. We're 0-10. I'm sorry.
Great year.
University of Kentucky, right? It was a great start to coaching.
Yeah.
And we go play at Kentucky. And so what I was going to do is treat all the wives to a spa. All right. And they were going to go with us on the trip. I know they've been through the same type year. They've lived the losses with us. And so I want to pay for them to go to the spa. And so it wasn't in our budget at Austin Peay. And so I said, fine, I'll do it. I'll pay for it. It's that important to me. I'll pay for it. And so I'm in the middle of my pregame speech talking to our football team about, we're going to go pull off the biggest upset in college football history. And Carter Crutchfield taps me on the shoulder and he goes, hey, during the middle of the speech, he's like, your debit card just declined. Do you have any more money or another card you can use? And I was like, whoa, my debit card just declined? And he's like, yeah. He's like, there's still 2 spas you have to pay for, but it just declined.
Oh, man.
Carter, I don't have any more money. Like, this is the end of the month. I get paid a week from now. I'll pay you back. Can you put it on your card and I'll pay you back first thing, next week whenever I get paid? And I'm still paying for debt that I went into as a head football coach at Austin Peay because you know what? There were things that somebody's salary wasn't right. I mean, Chris Laskowski was making nothing as our strength coach, and I wanted to be able to help him. And date nights and family nights and those things. It's like, look, I mean, I can sit here and say I'm going to be fiscally responsible with my own money, or I can say, you know what, I'm going to make sure, regardless if we have the resources or I have the resources, I'm going to make sure nobody treats you better than I do. And nobody gives you a better quality of life as an assistant or a wife of an assistant than I do. And so fighting for, look, I remember at Austin Peay, I wanted my wife to feel special when she came to a game. And so I had Carter make up these VIP tags that said Emily Healy, Eli Healy, Trina Hicks, VIP, right? And so these women are walking into this game with this lanyard around their neck that says VIP Emily Healy. And they walk in the front gate and the guy's like, I don't know what that is, but that's not that acceptable as a ticket to get in here. And it doesn't allow you access anywhere. But the fact that they felt special having it was enough for me at that point. I got them. I remember getting them parking passes in the media lot so they could have their own parking pass, or standing out on the corner, and making sure they got in our coaches lot. I remember that same trip at Kentucky, our buses got separated. And so I'm waiting on the last bus of the wives to come, and I'm calling Emily. I'm on the front of the bus on the way to the game. Where are y'all? Where are you? And they got lost. And so I get there. I walk out to the sheriff who's stopped the street, and I said, hey, can you find out where this other bus is? I want these wives to enjoy this, parade in here, and I need you to go find them. And so this guy gets on his walkie-talkie, and he's like, hey, anybody see a third red bus? He's like, I got and he's turned around and he looks at me and he's like, I think it's the equipment manager that's out here looking for where the third bus is. And I was like, it's fine. So they go find the bus, they come in, and the guy who was leading it, the sheriff who was leading it, was the guy who was in charge of protecting me, so to speak, at the game. And he's like, Coach, I am so sorry. We got him lost. And the guy who I told him I was the equipment guy, he's like, I thought you were the equipment guy. And I'm like, I'm great with it. It doesn't matter. I just want to make sure these wives got a chance to enjoy that experience. There's creative ways to do it. And if you're waiting to have enough money, it's like saying, I'm going to wait to get married till I have enough money.
Oh, so true.
It's when I have enough money. Just go broke.
Yeah.
Just do it. Like, you'll figure it out. If you're really good to people, things will find their way to work themselves out. And if they don't, then you can sleep with yourself because you've done everything you can to give people a good quality of life.
And it's not just going broke financially, but it's going broke in gratitude, and it's going broke in appreciation, and it's taking the time to understand how special it is to be a part of a bunch of athletes' lives where you're gonna change family trees, and that's what you're doing. I've watched you do it at Austin Peay. I mean, for those listening, I can remember I was the head wrestling coach at the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga. Will Healy's the wide receivers or quarterback coach. I don't know, maybe he was the equipment manager. And, we're meeting in a room on the 4th floor of McKenzie Arena, and you're making no money. I mean, you're broke. You're like, I'm not doing this the rest of my life. This is insane. You end up the head coach at Austin Peay. The only guy in America that would take the job at the time, honestly, was this 30-year-old, knucklehead from Ottawa, Tennessee. And then you end up at UNC-Charlotte. I mean, obviously tons of favor in your life. You surrounded yourself with the right people. You've been around a ton of athletes, from a high school athlete to a college athlete. You played on the national championship team in college at Richmond. You had an unbelievable experience there. What is the differentiating factor? And you and I talk about this a lot. What is the differentiating factor? What separates those who do make it and those who don't at the level you're coaching at today? Obviously, we know there's a level of athleticism that has to be present. Let's just go ahead and that's a no-brainer, okay? It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out. But the kids who walk onto campus, whether it be at Chattanooga, Austin Peay, UNC-Charlotte, or Clemson, what are the differentiating factors that allow them to overachieve versus those things that cause them to underachieve?
That's a great question. I'll say one human element to me that sometimes gets overlooked is you have to have a positivity about yourself and a likability about yourself that attracts other people to wanting to be around you. All right. So I'll give you a couple examples.
So time out here. I'm going to put that in a phrase. Players need to be magnets, not force fields. If you're repelling people from you, it's going to be hard to get better because you have to have people around you to get better. And your coach needs to want to be around you and coach you. Your teammates need to want to be around you and make you better. So an attitude that's magnetic versus an attitude that's repelling is super important if you want to achieve at the highest level. That's great.
I'll say, the reality of the situation is, let's take a head coach, for example. Okay. If a group of supporters and a group of fans and a group of administration really believe in the culture and believe in the person, and in some ways likes the person, right? You will buy yourself more time as a head coach. Your personality, your vision, your culture supersedes results. Okay. Yeah. And I believe that. And I think that the guys who are just about winning and losing, you better keep winning or you're losing your job. Right. That's the guys who are, it's bigger than that, and life is bigger than that, and you're teaching lessons that are bigger than that, and you develop relationships in your community and with the people around you. I think you can buy yourself some favor with people by those things. The other thing I would say is, let's take an Alex Highsmith, who I know is.
I got my text pulled up. I was going to bring it up.
Right. Alex Highsmith is he's a former walk-on, school start walk-on. They didn't even invite him to camp. School start walk-on defensive end for us. He had
time out. School start walk-on, which means there was not even enough belief in him to be a preferred walk-on. He literally showed up to campus and had to prove it.
He started when school started, so he missed the first weeks of camp, right? Yeah. And like changed in a different locker room and all this type of stuff. And, you know, has 2 or 3 sacks, but plays really hard, creates some film for himself and some value as a junior, and then has 14 sacks as a senior, right? AP All-American, the first one we've ever had in program history, second in the country in sacks. He goes to the combine and he walks around the room every interview he had, and he shakes the hands of everybody who's in the room and just says, I appreciate you. Like there's a gratitude portion of this that's different now, where thanks for spending time with me. Because there's so much of like, I deserve, or I'm in this situation, so you should bow to me. That when you have a guy walk in a situation like that, where he's one of the top players on the planet, playing his, you know, in the game of college football, and he walks in and he thanks people for spending the time with him and shakes their hand and look him in the eye, it blew every organization away. I mean, there's national reports coming out like Alex Highsmith just walked around the room and thanked people for being there. We've never seen anything like this. And so the Pittsburgh Steelers fall in love with the former walk-on, draft him in the 3rd round, and now Tomlin can't stop talking about him in Pittsburgh. He's a guy that is infectious to be around. He will create a longer career for himself because people will want him on their team. He works extremely hard. Sometimes from a coaching perspective, right? You want to talk coachability here. This guy will do everything you say to do exactly how you say to do it. So sometimes there were times we had to get him away from being so robotic and being such a people pleaser and just say, create some of your own swag with this thing. Don't be so, you know, mechanical with this, but here's what the ultimate, you know, outcome we're looking for is. But he challenges you as a coach to communicate properly, because what he did is what you just asked him to do, right? And so he's going to create value for himself because people want to be around him. I think there's a work ethic. I think there's a willingness to believe in something bigger than themselves. And I think there's the intangibles, the ability to learn. I would say as much as anything, probably the ability to be humble enough to learn from adversity and learn from your mistakes and then take accountability, right? So one of the best lessons and toughest lessons I had to learn was finding fault with myself when things didn't go the way that I would like for them to go. Even if it was something that in the back of my mind knew it really wasn't my fault, but finding something in that I could have done differently to maybe have gotten to a different outcome, felt like I had control over the situation again versus just blaming it on somebody else. And the best ones that I've coached and been around have had that ability to put it on their shoulders and find something that they could have done differently to get a different result.
So good. And for all of our parents and coaches out there at the younger levels, take note of what was just said, because no one said about Alex Highsmith, oh, he was just so much faster than people anticipated. He was so much stronger than people anticipated. You know, he was way more athletic than people anticipated. No, it was the intangibles that set him apart. And one of the things that is very easy to fall into the trap of in today's sport climate is that we can get so caught up in developing the skill of the young person that we miss developing the person themselves. And if you want to go from school start walk-on to the NFL, you better have the intangibles. One of the things that we say all the time that is so tragic, it's so tragic, is that when a kid has gifts and skills that get them to a room, I mean, they're super talented, and it gets them to Division I football or Division I basketball or Division I baseball. But their gifts and skills, because we've invested there, their gifts and skills get them to a room that their character won't allow them to stay. In the case of Alex Highsmith, his character got him to a room that no one thought he could be in. And as a parent and as a coach, here's what I want to challenge you with. If you are going to leverage one way or the other, leverage toward the intrinsic. I call it long haul attributes. When I ask you after the draft, hey, give me 3 words. I sent you and Marcus West, who's your DC, who's an unbelievable coach, one of my favorite people on the planet. I said, hey, 3 words to describe Alex Highsmith. Marcus West: consistent, self-reliant, student. You: pleaser, genuine, consistent. Nobody said freak athlete. Nobody said, unbelievably talented. It were those intrinsic qualities that make a human special. Those things right there are also what make him grateful, and they're what make him magnetic when he walks into a room. And so, man, our mission at A Better Way Athletics is to get people to see, and for those of you out there listening, it's not the norm. You are going to get so sucked into getting your kid hitting lessons, getting them with the right strength coach. As a parent, if you will develop the things that even Rob and Betsy Healy developed, and Coach Healy that sits here across from me today, if you will develop those things, you give your kid a chance to be in a room they probably don't belong to be in when it comes to the eye test. And so, man, I'm so passionate about that. I can't wait to meet Alex Highsmith and spend some time with him, because he is everything that the athletic world needs to be about. And so, Will, what would you say, I mean, to parents out there on the athletic journey? If you could give them one piece of advice, what would it be?
Make sure they're doing it because they love it, not because you love it. I think that, and I've learned a lot from you, Heath, on this, is that, like, I want Eli Healy to play whatever sport he wants to play. I don't want him to play football because I'm a football coach. Whenever he's ready to do it, I'm going to make him want it for a while before he does it. Mm-hmm. When he wants to strap on pads and be a football player, he's going to have to beg me for a couple years before I'm going to let him strap on pads and go be a football player. He wants to play baseball, I'm going to start him later because I want him to be hungry. And I think the other thing –
my word. I love that word, hungry, man.
I just think that as I look at our football team and the conversations that I'm having with some of these guys, right, a lot of them lack a support system at home. I think that having a loving enough relationship with your child where you can criticize but yet encourage is really important. But it can't be too much of one without the other. And, and always, always, always – you can talk to a coach all you want, but it can never be anything that you're doing as a parent to belittle the coach who in a lot of ways is volunteering their time to come help your son get better, right? If you think you got better answers, then go coach his dadgum team.
Yeah.
Don't sit here and talk about how dumb your coach is because he's not playing. One of the greatest things that my dad ever talked to me about, I was playing select soccer. We had a new coach. I'd been on this same team for like 6 years and had been one of the guys, right? Like always started. My spot was like solidified. This new coach comes in and we're in a tournament in Nashville. My middle brother, John, comes to watch me play. I don't get a second of playing time in the tournament, right? You know what my dad told me? You as a 10-year-old need to go to your coach and you need to say, Coach, I just want to know what I can do to give myself an opportunity. I understand I'm not complaining, but I just want to know what I need to work on so that I can gain your trust and be able to help you play. You know what the coach did? He knew it was important to me. He let me play. I scored 3 goals, and next thing you know, I'm back to where I was, right? But going through some of that adversity was really good for me. It was kind of like taking you down off of this, I can do no wrong, to like, I better work for this.
That's right.
A great lesson for me. All right. I'm a rising senior at Boyd Buchanan, playing single A high school football in the state of Tennessee, throwing for a bunch of yards and beating a bunch of guys who were not going to be playing college football. Nike camp at the University of Georgia. Start warming up with this dude who's got thighs the size of my entire body. He's throwing the ball through my chest. And so when we finished, I said, hey, man, you throw a pretty good ball. And he said, yeah, I appreciate it. I said, you got some scholarship offers? And this was not the world of Twitter where blessed to get my 7th offer. Yeah. But he said, yeah, I've got 36 scholarship offers. And I was like, oh. And he said, who's recruiting you? And I said, I had paid for a 3-day camp at Wake Forest in Virginia, which I don't know, but those are the most money-sucking things you can possibly do. They're not you. They want your money.
Yeah.
And so I was like, probably Wake Forest in Virginia. And he goes, oh, Wake Forest. He said, they offered me in 8th grade. It was Chris Leak, right, who obviously had a little bit better collegiate career than I did. But that's when I found out I wasn't as good as I thought I was. And I cowered to competition. I'm going through the ladder drill. A guy's going faster than I am, or I'm messing up, and I cower from it, right? I go run the 40. I run a 5.1 instead of a 4.5 that I thought I was. Cower. Hey, don't put that down there. I don't, right? And I'm so worried about hiding that I'm not as good as I say I was, or hiding from this ego of, look at this stud, that I never competed like I should have. And it took me a while in college to be able to get that, right? It's a great thing about being at a place where when you walk and chew gum, you're going to be really good. But it's the tough part about moving to the next level when you're around a bunch of guys who are all really good. And so going through adversity in sports is something that for the betterment of them as people, but if you ever want them to be the type of athlete that they can be, they can get here all you want to, but they're going to face some adversity here. And if they can't go through it on their own, they're probably not going to make it. We're going to have an unbelievable support system, but they have to want to make it. And keeping them hungry, letting them go through adversity and learn on their own, but being positive with them, I think is the best advice that I learned from my dad that I would encourage everybody out there to do.
And the intersection of success and struggle is a difficult place. And as a parent and as a coach, it is painful to watch kids go through that. I mean, when it's your own kid, like people will say, well, why is it so hard for parents to let their kid go through it? One, because it's painful. It hurts. It sucks. The other thing for parents is oftentimes as parents, we think our kids struggle. I don't even want to call it, I don't use the word failure. It's just a struggle. We think it's a validation of us as a parent. And really the validation for us as a parent is how do they respond to the struggle? It's not that they go through them. I mean, listen, life is going to throw you enough curveballs where you're going to swing and miss at times. And so, predetermining, I read a book several years ago. I think it was by Bill Walsh, The Score Takes Care of Itself. And in that book, it's actually a great book for any coach out there. In that book, he was one of the first guys to script plays. I didn't know that. I'm not a football guy. But hey, from the right hash and this, yardage mark, here's our best 7 plays. Pick one. And so as parents, sometimes what we do is we don't create a script. We just go on emotion. And when you go on emotion, it's dangerous. And so, if I'm a coach or a parent leading the next generation of people that are going to lead our world, which I'm very hopeful, I think we can raise the best generation ever if we, put effort into it. You have to have a script. Hey, how am I going to manage these situations? How am I going to manage when my 10-year-old doesn't see a single minute? You better predetermine it, because if you don't, you're going to get so mad, you're going to say something you shouldn't say, and you're actually going to hurt your kid in that situation. And so one of the things that a better way that we talk about is like creating those scripts as a parent. You use the word with Eli. Hey, I want him to be hungry. I'm going to hold him out. I believe in the same philosophy. Hungry people eat what's on the plate. Full people complain that it's green beans. If you're hungry, green beans look great. And so in the sports world today, we overfeed them so much, and then we go, well, he's not coachable. It's like, it's not that he's not coachable. He's bored. He's not hungry. You've been shoving food down his throat for, 15, 20 years. And so, man.
Well, I think the other thing, Heath, too, to me is like, I think about it because there's so many translations between coaching and raising a child. It's not even funny. And to me, my coaching philosophy, and as Eli gets older, my philosophy with him, especially in regards to sports, is like, what are my values?
Yeah.
Here's what I wanted to do. Okay. And my dad is the one my dad does not have any clue how to shoot a basketball. But every time he came to watch me play, it was I unselfish enough to take a charge? Did I dive on the floor more than anybody else? And did I play harder than anybody else? He didn't care if I made a 3.
Yes.
He didn't care if I scored more points. He just wanted to know, did I have a good attitude? Was I unselfish? Did I take a charge? Like the scrappy plays. Was I willing to do that? Was I a try hard type guy? Was I going to get the
I
most
love that term.
out of my athletic ability? Right. And I get mad at some guys on the field sometimes. They're running a sprint, and they're like running 100 miles an hour and looking like they don't have a care in the world. And they're like, Coach, just because I'm not as unathletic as you are, doesn't mean I have to have my fist clenched in a tight jaw. Like, I'm running, okay? It's just easier for me than it is for you. And I gotta know that about some of these guys and their abilities. But it's the same thing for Eli. Like, here's what I want you to do. I want you to work really hard at what you're doing. I want you to love what you're doing. Right? I want you to develop really good relationships with your teammates. And I want you to play freaking hard.
Yeah.
If you do those things, but you're not good enough to do it, guess what? We just learned a real world example in high school that you didn't have to learn in college. Yeah. But how do you respond from? Are you going to quit? Or are you going to be like, no, I got another role, and that is I'm going to be the backup quarterback and the captain of a national championship team, something that I never wanted. That wasn't my goal going to college, but it was something I learned so much through that adversity. I was prepared for times like this as a coach. It's like, what are the controllable things and what are the things that I could separate from a result and say, this is what is important for me that my child shows. And those type of characteristics that you feel like transcend sports and are what you want your son or daughter to be after sports: hardworking, generous, right? And show gratitude, a great teammate, respond to adversity really well, coachable, like focus on those things, not that score 20 points and they're the MVP of a basketball tournament.
And here's the beauty of it for the coaches out there, even that, because we talk a lot about culture. I just saw your culture book that we worked on, and everyone talks about culture. And here's what coaches will tell me sometimes: well, those things are hard to measure. And I'm like, no, what's hard to measure? Free throws, assist, yardage is hard to measure. Completion percentage is hard to measure. Penalties are hard to measure. Grading a lineman out on a game day is hard to measure. But the reason we do it is because we value it. And so as a coach and a parent, what we have to do is we have to create a different scorecard of those things that transcend time. The things that you're talking about with Eli, the things that we talk about with Alex Highsmith, the things that your dad taught you that actually allowed you to be in the seat that you're in today, those are what I call global and stable attributes. They cross all boundaries. You could be a backup quarterback on a national championship team, a starting quarterback on a state championship team, or a head football coach in the middle of a pandemic in 2020. And those attributes add value to who you are as an individual. And then the stable attributes, they stand the test of time. It doesn't matter how old you are. They're going to remain true. And so I think in the sports world today, we can get so caught up in wanting to have a little bit of success early that we miss those foundational things that give kids like Alex Highsmith a chance. And I always, and we talk a lot about when should kids start and things like that. That's probably the number one question I get. And you and I have talked about it. When should my kids start? And here's what I say: you're asking the wrong question. The question is not when your kids should start playing sports. The question is, who do you want your child to be when they finish? And the parent and the coach have a lot of influence over that. I can't decide when they start. And I know kids that start early and make it, and kids that start early and don't. I know kids that start late and make it, and kids that start late and don't. And so, but the one thing I do have control over is, am I developing those things that really matter? And here's how I always, if they matter to you, here's what, if effort matters, if positivity matters, if accountability matters at UNC-Charlotte, then here's what Will Healy will do. He will look for it and reward it and cultivate it in the program. And so for all of the coaches out there, I don't care if you're an 8 and 9 year old soccer coach, if those are the things we know that produce in the most important moments of a person's life, then you've got to cultivate and reward those things that matter. No one remembers that one soccer goal, that a kid scored to win you the 8-year-old championship, but you are producing people that are going to have an impact on this world. So last question, man. I know it's a crazy time. I don't even want to talk about Corona because I'm sick of talking about it. what are you most excited about at UNC-Charlotte?
That we still have an opportunity to play. And that I think that we've spent a lot of time focusing on things that are going to matter a lot more than a game of football. And we've handled these last five and a half months as well as I could possibly ever imagine, because it's been bigger than football. And our culture meetings they just finished one the last 2 days. So basically what I did is I had every coach go up with the topic and create their own slideshow. And so they heard from a different voice. And in the last 3 days, we've done which topic or which culture pillar or culture idea do you excel at and why? And which the second day was which one do you struggle at and why is it important that you change it? And today's was what's an area that you feel like our organization really needs to improve, or a new area that you think we need to expand on. And just our guys are getting it. Our guys have rallied around each other. They're enjoying playing the game of football. It's not life and death. They're not like, oh my goodness, I couldn't survive without it. They're just loving being around each other and growing and competing. That it's been a lot of fun. And I know our schedule is like the NFC East, and it's going to be hard as heck to win football games. But I think where we are right now, the path that we're on, really being bigger than football, is light years ahead of where we were a year ago. And I can sleep with that regardless of what the results may be.
Well, man, I'm so excited for you. It's been so fun to watch your journey. And from one former coach and dad, man, I just want to say thanks for showing the world that it can be done better, that it can be done the right way, that we can cultivate the right things in young men and young women, no matter what sport we coach, no matter what age group we coach, that there is a way that we can do things that actually produces, the outcomes that we desire inside of those young people, not just on the scoreboard or whatever. So, man, I look forward to continuing to cultivate this ground with you. Thanks for what you do. Love your family. Love your staff. I mean, if you don't know anything about UNC-Charlotte football staff, it's just an unbelievable group of people, again, because Will Healy's magnetic. He surrounds himself with magnetic people, and great things happen when you do that. So final thoughts for the listeners out there.
Yeah, I think positivity is probably as important as now as it's ever been. And I think I talk to our guys all the time about, would you ever pick a best friend who you thought was negative or always looked for the faults in people? And they all say no. And I say, well, why would you be that yourself? Look, being positive does not mean you always have to act like there's flowers blooming outside, but being positive is Marcus Lattimore came to speak to our football team, and he said, suffering ceases the moment you give it meaning. And to me, that was like, we're going through a lot, but there's a reason why we're going through it. And we're going to be positive about that there's light at the end of the tunnel. We're going to be positive about the impact that these young men are going to make, regardless if some of them are, you feel like a preacher sometimes where you don't really know if everybody's getting it, if everybody's listening. I feel like every conversation is like life-changing. You see like 5 guys asleep in the back, and you're like, okay, maybe it didn't change his life, but maybe hear the recording. So it's creating a positivity around your house, around your work, around other people, to just say, look, I mean, we need that right now. We need that right now. We need to appreciate the differences in others and remember your whys, why you're doing it, why you wanted to be a parent, why you wanted to be a coach, why you wanted your son to succeed, whatever it may be, and don't lose sight of those based on a result.
Man, I truly believe that gratitude is the key to that positivity, like being grateful. And sometimes you got to look deep, man. People will ask me, you've heard me say it, or Heath, are you a glass half full or a glass half empty kind of guy? And I'm like, neither. Both those suck. They're there's only 50% of the liquid in there. I said, I'm a glass all the way full kind of guy. And here's what I've learned about me. And maybe if you're listening, if you were honest, we've talked a lot about self-reflection. questions lead to reflection. Reflection lead to growth. Maybe you need to ask yourself some hard questions. But normally when Heath Esslinger's glass is not full, it's because I'm poking my own holes in it. And it's easy to blame that on my circumstances. It's easy to blame that on my coaches. It's easy to blame that on my genetics. But most of the time, my glass isn't full. It's because I'm poking my own holes in it. So for all of you out there, man, be grateful. This season looks different, but let's be grateful for what we're learning. I call it pain with a purpose. And let's learn. Let's get better. Let's lead well, just as Will Healy is doing at UNC-Charlotte. Can't wait to watch you guys take the field. Obviously, we'll be doing that from the television only, but we look forward to watching you take the field. Again, thanks for what you do. If you're out there listening, you want to know more about A Better Way Athletics, visit us at abetterwayathletics.com. We have a virtual training platform for schools, for youth sport organizations, for governing bodies, for you as an individual family. We want to help restore the joy of sport for parents, coaches, and athletes, and we don't want to just complain about the problem. We want to offer a prescription. So if you're out there, check us out. We would love to be a part of helping you do it better. Thanks.
Can I give you a plug, Heath?
Go ahead, Coach.
I mean this, and I would say it to anybody who would want to listen. Since the time I had an opportunity to be around you at Chattanooga, unbelievable mentor to me. Nobody does it better. And what you've done for our team, whether it was at Austin Peay, Chattanooga, or here, the Zoom calls that you've had, the culture pieces. I mean, we just wrote a culture book because of you. And I'll hop on anytime, anywhere, be any spokesperson I can, because nobody is better than you are. And I believe that. I love you. I appreciate you. Thanks for having me on today, and look forward to talking to you soon.
You got it, brother. Thanks so much.